Alright, welcome to my first game review. This one is going to be about Mortal Shell, a game developed by Cold Symmetry and published by PlayStack. Now, this game isn't new, it was released last year in August 2020, but after playing it on my PS5 in its enhanced version, I felt like I needed to make a proper review. Mortal Shell is a Souls-like action RPG, and what that means is that basically, yes, the game is built around difficulty. Yes, you're gonna die a lot, but you have to learn the different mechanics. You have to use them to your advantage and not get frustrated too much when you die, because it's gonna happen, and you have to get used to it. And yes, you're gonna lose your progress, but it's kind of part of the fun. So a key element that defines a Souls-like game is that risk-reward mechanic, where when you die, your body and tar, or basically souls or XP if you will, remains where you died until you get it back, and if you die before getting it back, you lose all your collected tar. So yes, this can be quite frustrating at times, but it's still a big part of what makes a Souls-like game exciting. So what's pretty unique, and what I like a lot about Mortal Shell, is that you don't really have stats like you don't have scaling, you don't have strength or dexterity. Instead, you have 4 shells, 4 characters that have different characteristics, and you have a skill tree. Although it's really not a tree, it's like a star. But what I mean by that is that there are skills that you can unlock with the tar that you collected. And what's cool about those shells is that they aren't only armor and skills, they actually are real characters with backstory. And every time you unlock a skill, you have a piece of that lore with really, really nice voice acting.
Brigands pointed us toward the temple. Shunned by the devout, their allegiances lie to those who are Fatah, or spirits. They entertain themselves with drunken antics or violent cruelties. They know better than to attack us. But they followed us at a distance, hoping for scraps.
So right at the start of the game, you'll have access to Haros, which is kind of the hardened guy. I'll explain later. Hardening is a game mechanic, a very important game mechanic, and this shell specializes around that skill. And then you've got Teal, which is the stamina guy. As you can see here, he has the longest stamina bar, but at the same time he has a very, very short health gauge. So this guy is really for experienced players, because after 2 hits or 3, he dies. Then you've got my personal favorite, Solomon. This is kind of the resolve guy, or the magic guy. Resolve is really the mana or the magic aspect of this game. So this shell has multiple resolve bars, and that lets you cast a lot of magic and stuff. I'll talk about that aspect later in the video. And then you've got Aerodrome. This one is kind of the easy mode of the game if you want, because he has such a long health bar. He has a short stamina bar, but still he can tank a lot, and his skills revolves around tanking and high damage output. And he looks cool as hell. At first, I wasn't sure about this aspect. I mean, I like customizing my character with different armor types, but let me tell you, the more I played with the different shells, the more I enjoyed it. So to upgrade your shell, you need both Tar and Glimpse, and speak to Sister Janessa in the hub. Glimpse can be dropped randomly by enemies, and you can find items that will give you some. And by the way, get this kill as soon as possible. I really strongly recommend you get it.
I still reach for her in the middle of a cold night, but there is only the echo of her left. I see her outline. I can hear her voice rattling in my skull.
As for the weapons, there are only 4, but they are all upgradable with different powers, and they all have different movesets, so you can choose the one that suits your gameplay style the best. I personally prefer the Hallow Sword, as it's well balanced, and for any beginner it's a good weapon to choose. You also have the Hammer and Chisel for fast attacks. You've got the Martyr's Blade. This one can freeze enemies with its special attack. You've got the Smoldering Mace, also very slow but very strong, and it has fire attacks. So you can see you don't have a lot of weapons, but they are unique and they are very fun to use. By the way, one tip for you, find as many quenching acid as you can early in the game. This will make your weapon do more damage, and it makes the game a whole lot easier. Oh, and there is only one type of ranged weapon, the, wait for it, Ballistazooka. It takes way too long to reload that thing, but it feels so good hitting enemies with this weapon. It's a bit tricky to find, but totally worth it. And the reloading animation is just awesome. Oh, and I just love when games allow you to impale enemies to the walls. Combat is very different from other games in this genre. The big difference is that, a bit like Bloodborne, you never use a shield in this game. Instead, you have to rely on the harden mechanic. When you press L2, your character goes into this immobile solid state called hardened, and while hardened, you can withstand any attack, even from tough enemies and bosses. But you can't just spam this over and over, as it has a reload time. You have to plan exactly when you're going to use it. And what's cool is that you can harden whenever you want, in the air or even in the middle of a combo. And if you feel like you know the attack pattern of an enemy, there is a generous iframe that you can use to avoid incoming attacks, as you can see by the hardened state when I use the dodge button. Near the start of the game, you get the Tarnished Seal. This item enables you to parry most attacks. For some reason, I still have a hard time getting the timing right for the parrying. You kind of have to press the button a couple milliseconds before an attack. A trick I found was to press the parry button at the same time the enemy lunges forward to attack you. But it's not always that easy. You kind of have to learn how to parry, because this is how the game wants you to heal. So when you counter attack after a parry, the seal has the ability to restore some health. You can, however, heal with those mushrooms, but it's way less effective. So I said you can parry most attacks. That's because some attacks cannot be parried. Like this one, for example. When you hear this sound and the seal glows like that, you either have to iframe through it or harden, because you cannot parry it. Oh, and by the way, parrying uses resolve, which can be obtained simply by chaining attacks on enemy. And to parry, you need at least one full bar of resolve. I got one tip for you here: keep hitting the enemy after it's dead. You'll still gain resolve while it's in its death animation. So add all of what I said previously to create some great combos. This one is one of my favorite. I do 2 or 3 straightforward attacks and then parry using the inflammability of the seal, and then harden when it explodes to avoid the damage, and finish with heavy attacks. Those are the kind of combos you can create using the different mechanics of the game. I have to mention the haptics on the PS5. They are really well implemented. For example, when you can't use harden because it hasn't recharged yet, you get a little force feedback in the L2 button, reminding you that you can't use the ability. Same thing for R2 when you don't have sufficient stamina to attack. For a game that's been enhanced for PS5, it looks amazing. It runs at 60 FPS with better textures and 4K resolution, and I really like the different areas of the game. You've got this fairly normal forest area called Fulgrim. You've got the Shrine of Ash. You've got the Seat of Infinity, this weird twisted world. And you've got this iced underworld called Crypt of Martyrs. And another cool aspect of this game is that the hub, which is called Fulgrim Tower, is kind of the central piece of the game, and then there are 3 branching paths leading to the other areas. This is where you'll be able to upgrade your gear, buy some goods to help you through your journey.
I'll gladly accept any tar as payment.
You'll be able to pet a cat. Please pet the cat. By the way, there is no map to guide you, so you really have to play the game quite a bit to make sense of it all, and it can be a bit confusing and frustrating at times. Though you can touch those weapons in the hub to give you a little hint as to where to go next. And yes, this game can be quite challenging at times, at least for me, and that's because I had so much muscle memory built around how to play Dark Souls and Bloodborne. I tried to block attacks, spam attacks, nothing worked. But it somehow clicked after a couple hours, and then the game became so good. The same happened to me when I first played Sekiro. You really have to keep playing the game to learn how and when to use the different game mechanics. The bosses aren't a real challenge though, and were a bit of a letdown, except for the final boss, which was great, but I won't show you that. Any Souls fan should try this one out. The developers at Cold Symmetry did an amazing job here, and it deserves all the praise and awards they are getting. Now I just hope they are working on Immortal Shell 2 because I definitely want more. You have to give the developers credit for what they've done here for such a small team. I said it and I will say it again, this one is up there as one of the best indie games ever made. Totally recommended. If you liked my review of Mortal Shell, please leave a like and subscribe for more. You can expect a lot of different things on this channel, and game reviews are a part of it. Might even do some retro game reviews. Alright, thanks for watching, take care, see you next time.